I never thought I'd be that woman. You know, the one, standing in her own bedroom at 76 years old, holding evidence of a betrayal so cruel it made my hands shake. But there I was, frozen like a statue, staring at my husband Cornelius's phone while the world crashed down around me. Let me back up. My name is Margot, and I'd given this man 52 years of my life. 52 years of loyalty, love, and sacrifice. We lived in a quiet ranch house in Cedar Falls, Iowa, where the biggest excitement was usually the county fair or someone's garden winning a ribbon. Cornelius was 78, retired from the post office, and I thought we were living out our golden years in peace. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I was making coffee when Cornelius's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. He was in the shower, and normally I wouldn't even glance at it. But something made me look. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was God giving me a sign. The message preview lit up the screen, and my heart stopped cold. Last night was incredible. Can't wait for Thursday when Margot goes to her book club. The sender's name was Desiree. A little heart emoji sat next to her contact photo, a woman who looked barely 50, with bleached blonde hair and too much makeup. My legs went weak. I grabbed the counter to steady myself, my coffee forgotten. With trembling fingers, I unlocked his phone. I knew his passcode. It was our wedding anniversary, which now felt like the cruelest joke in the world. What I found in those messages made me want to scream, cry, and break everything in sight all at once. Months. This had been going on for months. Detailed messages about their encounters, plans they'd made, places they'd been while I thought he was at the hardware store or playing cards with his buddies. She called him corny bear. He called her his wild thing. I felt bile rise in my throat as I scrolled through photo after photo, message after message, lie after lie. The shower turned off upstairs. I heard him humming, actually humming, some old tune like he didn't have a care in the world. Like he hadn't just destroyed 5 decades of marriage. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Part of me wanted to march upstairs and confront him right then. But something stopped me. A cold, calculated thought slid into my mind like ice water through my veins. If I confronted him now, he'd make excuses. He'd gaslight me, tell me I was reading things wrong, that I was being paranoid or senile. Men like Cornelius always did. No, I needed proof. I needed a plan. And most importantly, I needed revenge that would make him regret ever taking me for granted. I placed his phone back exactly where he'd left it, my mind already racing with possibilities. What would you do if you discovered your partner's ultimate betrayal? Drop a comment below and don't forget to subscribe. This story is just getting started, and trust me, you won't believe what happens next. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. For 2 days, I walked around our house like a ghost, serving Cornelius's meals, doing his laundry, playing the role of dutiful wife while my insides churned with rage. He noticed nothing. That's what 52 years of taking someone for granted looks like. You become invisible. Thursday came. Book club day. Every Thursday for the past 6 years, I'd driven to the community center to discuss novels with 8 other women my age. It was my one escape, my one piece of independence. And this snake had been using it to betray me in our own bed. Have a good time, Margie, Cornelius called out as I grabbed my purse. He was sitting in his recliner, pretending to watch the news. I saw him glance at his phone, saw that little smile creep across his face. My stomach turned. I will, dear, I said sweetly. Too sweetly. But he didn't notice. He never noticed anything about me anymore. I drove exactly 3 blocks, then pulled into the parking lot of Randall's Diner. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I'd made a decision the night before, lying awake while Cornelius snored beside me. I wasn't going to book club. I was going to catch them in the act. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. I sat in that parking lot, watching the clock, imagining what was happening in my home. At the 2-hour mark, I drove back slowly, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might have a heart attack right there in my old Buick. Her car was in my driveway. A red convertible BMW that screamed midlife crisis. I pulled to the curb 2 houses down and just stared at it. Part of me wanted to storm inside. Part of me wanted to drive away and pretend I'd never seen anything. But the strongest part, the part that had been humiliated and betrayed, needed to see this through. I waited another 20 minutes, then used my key to quietly enter through the front door. The house was silent except for sounds coming from upstairs. From our bedroom. Sounds that made my blood boil and my eyes burn with tears I refused to let fall. I stood at the bottom of the staircase, my entire body trembling. 52 years. 52 years I'd been faithful, devoted, present. I'd nursed him through prostate surgery. I'd cared for his mother when she had dementia. I'd sacrificed job opportunities to follow him to different cities for his career. And this was my reward. Something inside me shifted. Not broke, shifted. Like a door slamming shut on the woman I used to be and opening on someone new. Someone who wasn't going to take this lying down. I pulled out my phone and started recording video, climbing each stair slowly, quietly, letting the camera capture every sound, every piece of evidence. When I reached the bedroom door, slightly ajar, I could see them. My husband of 52 years and this woman young enough to be my daughter, tangled up in the sheets I'd washed just 3 days ago. The rage that filled me was volcanic, but I kept recording. Evidence first. Revenge second. Think Margot should confront them right now, or is she planning something even better? Hit that like button if you're Team Margot, and keep watching, the next chapter will blow your mind. I stood there recording for a full minute before I spoke. When I finally did, my voice came out cold and steady, a tone I didn't even recognize as my own. Well, isn't this cozy? The scrambling was almost comical. Desiree screamed and yanked the sheets up to her chest. Cornelius went pale, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The affair might have been going on for months, but clearly neither of them had planned for this moment. Margot. This isn't, we were just, Cornelius stammered, sitting up and reaching for his pants on the floor. Don't you dare, I said, still filming. Don't you dare insult my intelligence with whatever lie you're about to tell. I've read the messages. All of them. Corny bear. I said his ridiculous pet name with all the venom I could muster. Desiree had the decency to look ashamed, though that might have just been panic. She was younger than I'd thought, maybe 45, with bottle blonde hair and too much Botox. This was who he'd traded me for. This was worth throwing away 5 decades. How long? I asked, my voice breaking slightly despite my best efforts. How long have you been doing this in our home? In our bed? Cornelius finally found his voice, though it came out weak and pathetic. Margie, please. Let's talk about this. Send her home and we'll talk. I laughed. Actually laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound that surprised even me. Talk? Now you want to talk? After months of sneaking around behind my back, using my book club as your little rendezvous schedule? It's not what you think, he started, and I held up my hand. Stop. Just stop. I looked at Desiree, who was frantically trying to gather her clothes. You. Get out of my house. Now. She didn't need to be told twice. She grabbed her things and practically ran past me, not even fully dressed, leaving a cloud of cheap perfume in her wake. I heard the front door slam, then her car engine roaring to life. Now it was just us. Husband and wife. 52 years of marriage hanging in the air between us like smoke. Cornelius stood up, pulling on his pants, trying to regain some dignity. Margot, I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. She pursued me, and I was weak, Anne. Don't, I interrupted. Don't blame her. Don't make excuses. You're a grown man, Cornelius. You made a choice. Every single time you texted her, every time you invited her into our home, into our bed, those were choices. He sat down on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. For a moment, he looked old and pathetic, and I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. What do you want me to say? He asked quietly. I looked around our bedroom, the wedding photo on the dresser, the quilt my mother had made us, the life we built together. All of it felt contaminated now, spoiled by his betrayal. I don't want you to say anything, I told him. I want you to pack a bag and get out. Go stay with your brother. Go stay with her for all I care. But you're not sleeping under this roof tonight. Margie, come on. Get out. My voice was steel. Or I send this video to everyone we know. Your brother, our children, the whole damn church congregation. His face went white. We'd built a reputation in this town. Cornelius especially prided himself on being seen as a good, decent man. The thought of everyone knowing the truth terrified him more than losing me ever could, and that realization hurt worse than the affair itself. Will Cornelius leave quietly, or is he about to make this situation even worse? Comment below what you think Margot should do next, and don't forget to subscribe. This revenge story is about to get wild. He left. Cornelius actually packed a bag and walked out of our home like I'd asked. I watched from the window as his truck pulled out of the driveway, half expecting him to turn around, to fight for us, to beg. He didn't. He just drove away, and that told me everything I needed to know about what our marriage had really meant to him. The house felt different that night. Bigger somehow, and unbearably quiet. I walked through each room, touching things we'd accumulated over 5 decades, the ugly lamp his mother had given us that I'd always hated but kept anyway, the collection of coffee mugs from vacations we'd taken, the refrigerator covered in grandchildren's drawings. I opened a bottle of wine. I wasn't much of a drinker, but that night I poured myself a large glass and sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, marking each second of my new reality. I was 76 years old, alone, and my husband was probably already calling Desiree to tell her what happened. That thought sent a fresh wave of anger through me. My hands started shaking again, and I put down the wine glass before I threw it against the wall. Crying wasn't going to fix this. Wallowing wasn't going to fix this. I needed a plan. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter, Sutton. Hi Mom. Just checking in. How was book club? I stared at those words for a long time. Sutton was 48, lived 2 states away with her husband and teenage kids. She called every week, visited twice a year, and thought her parents had the perfect marriage. The idea of telling her what her father had done made me feel sick. I texted back, "It was fine, sweetheart. Talk soon." The lie came easily. Too easily. But I wasn't ready to shatter her image of her father. Not yet. When I told our children, I wanted all my ducks in a row. I wanted to be strong, not this broken woman drinking wine alone in her kitchen. 3 more days passed. Cornelius called twice, but I didn't answer. He left voicemails that I deleted without listening to. Our son, Palmer, called to say Dad was staying with him and Uncle Eugene, and he sounded confused but didn't push for details. I told him we'd had a disagreement and needed some space. Another lie. I was getting good at those. On the fourth day, I received a letter. Not an email or a text, an actual letter, delivered by certified mail. I signed for it with shaking hands and opened it at the kitchen table. It was from a lawyer. Cornelius was filing for divorce. I read the words 3 times before they sank in. He was divorcing me. After 52 years, after I caught him cheating, somehow he twisted this around to make himself the victim who needed to escape. The papers cited irreconcilable differences and requested a division of assets. Something inside me snapped. Not the sad, broken snap of a woman defeated. No, this was different. This was the snap of a woman who'd finally had enough. He wanted to destroy our marriage and take half of everything we built. Fine. But he was going to pay for what he'd done. Not with money, with something far more valuable. His dignity. I pulled out my laptop and started researching. I'd never been a vengeful person, never been someone who sought to hurt others. But Cornelius had awakened something dark and determined inside me. If he wanted a war, he was going to get one. And I already knew exactly where to start. His precious reputation was about to take a hit he'd never recover from. Margot's about to make her move, but will it cross a line? Drop a comment with what you think she should do, smash that subscribe button, and keep watching because the next chapter is where everything changes. I spent a full week planning. Research, preparation, and careful consideration of every detail. This wasn't going to be some impulsive act of anger that I'd regret later. No, this was going to be calculated, precise, and absolutely devastating. First, I made copies of everything. The text messages, the photos, the videos I'd taken. I stored them in 3 different places: cloud storage, a thumb drive hidden in my sewing kit, and with my lawyer. Yes, I'd hired my own attorney, a sharp woman named Cordelia Branch who looked at my evidence and smiled like a shark smelling blood in the water. Mrs. Pemberton, she'd said, using my maiden name like I'd requested, by the time we're done, your husband is going to wish he treated you better. But the legal route was going to take time. Months, maybe a year. And I wanted something more immediate. Something that would hurt him the way he'd hurt me. That's when I remembered the conversations I'd overheard, the little details Cornelius thought I didn't notice. He and Desiree had plans. Every Tuesday and Thursday while I was supposedly at book club or my volunteer work at the hospital. They had a whole routine worked out. And Cornelius, being a creature of habit even in his affair, kept certain supplies in his nightstand drawer. Supplies that helped him perform at his age, if you know what I mean. The idea came to me while I was cleaning out that very nightstand, throwing away reminders of his betrayal. There, in the back of the drawer, was a tube of personal lubricant. Expensive stuff, probably bought special for his encounters with Desiree. My hand hovered over it, and suddenly I started laughing. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was the laugh of a woman who'd finally found the perfect revenge. I drove to 3 different stores that week. Didn't want anyone getting suspicious. At each one, I bought strong adhesive glue, the kind that bonds instantly and requires medical intervention to separate. Industrial strength. The warning labels were extensive, but I read every word carefully. Back home, I emptied the lubricant tube carefully, cleaned it thoroughly, and refilled it with the glue. It looked identical. Felt identical. Unless you were specifically looking for differences, you'd never know. I sealed it back up, made sure the packaging looked undisturbed, and placed it exactly where Cornelius had left it in the nightstand. Was it dangerous? Absolutely. Was it illegal? Probably. Did I care at that moment? Not even a little bit. I knew their schedule. Thursday was coming up. Cornelius had been texting me, asking to come home to talk things through and work on our marriage. I'd been non-committal, letting him think there was hope. But I also knew from hacking his email that he'd confirmed plans with Desiree. The affair wasn't over. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. Come home Thursday, I finally texted him Wednesday night. We need to talk. His response was immediate. Thank you, Margie. I love you. I'll be there Thursday afternoon. Another lie. He'd be there, all right. But not for me. For her. I made arrangements to be elsewhere Thursday. A real appointment this time, with a friend 2 towns over. Alibi established, plan in motion. All I had to do was wait and let nature take its course. Wednesday night, I barely slept. Partly from anticipation, partly from guilt that kept trying to creep in. Was I really going to do this? Was I really capable of such calculated revenge? Then I remembered the messages. The photos. The betrayal. Yes. Yes, I was capable. And Cornelius had no idea what was coming. Is Margot going too far, or is Cornelius about to get exactly what he deserves? Let me know in the comments, hit that like button, and make sure you're subscribed because the next chapter is explosive. Thursday morning, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. Like an actress who'd rehearsed her lines so many times that opening night felt easy. I dressed carefully, a nice floral blouse and slacks, and made breakfast even though I couldn't eat a bite. Cornelius wasn't due back until afternoon, but I had preparations to make. I called my friend Jolene, who lived in the next county over. I'm coming for that visit we planned, I told her. I'll be there around noon and stay for dinner. Jolene was delighted. She was one of the few people who knew something was wrong in my marriage, though I hadn't told her the full truth. Just that Cornelius and I were having problems. She promised to have coffee and her famous lemon bars waiting. Before I left, I walked through the house one final time. Everything was in place. The tube was in the nightstand drawer, exactly where it should be. The sheets were fresh and clean, I'd washed them yesterday, a detail that made me feel sick but was necessary for authenticity. I wanted everything to look normal, inviting even. I grabbed my purse and drove away from my house at 11:30, my hand steady on the wheel. I didn't look back. Jolene's house was 40 minutes away, far enough that no one could claim I'd been anywhere near Cedar Falls when it happened. We sat on her porch drinking coffee, talking about her grandchildren and her garden and everything except what was really on my mind. I kept checking my phone, waiting. 3 o'clock came and went. Then 4. I started to worry that maybe they'd changed plans, that maybe Cornelius had actually grown a conscience. But then, at 4:47, my phone lit up with a call from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Margot Pemberton? A professional female voice asked. Yes, this is she. Ma'am, this is Mercy General Hospital. Your husband Cornelius has been admitted to the emergency room. You're listed as his emergency contact. My heart hammered in my chest, but I kept my voice concerned and confused. Oh my goodness! What happened? Is he okay? The doctor will need to discuss that with you in person. How quickly can you get here? I told her I'd be there within an hour, thanked her, and hung up. Jolene looked at me with wide eyes. What's wrong? It's Cornelius. He's in the hospital. I have to go. I gathered my things, hugged her quickly, and drove back toward Cedar Falls with my heart pounding. Part excitement, part terror, part disbelief that my plan had actually worked. The emergency room was chaos when I arrived. I gave Cornelius's name to the desk clerk, who looked at me with barely concealed pity and pointed me toward a consultation room. A young doctor met me there, his expression carefully neutral. "Mrs. Pemberton, your husband came in with a very unusual situation," he began. "What kind of situation?" I asked, channeling every bit of concerned wife energy I could muster. The doctor cleared his throat uncomfortably. He and a female companion were engaged in intimate activity when they became adhered together. We're working to separate them now, but it's a delicate process. The substance appears to be some form of industrial adhesive. I let my mouth fall open in shock. Industrial adhesive? How on earth? I stopped, my hand going to my mouth. Oh my God. Was there someone in our house? A break-in? The doctor looked uncomfortable. That's something you'll need to discuss with your husband and the police. They're investigating how this happened. Police. The word sent a chill through me, but I'd prepared for this possibility too. Margot's revenge worked, but now the police are involved. Will she get caught, or has she covered her tracks perfectly? Comment below, hit subscribe, and keep watching because this story is about to get even crazier. They wouldn't let me see him at first. I sat in that waiting room for 2 hours, watching other patients come and go, ambulances arriving, nurses rushing past with clipboards. My mind raced through every possible outcome. Would they trace it back to me? Had I left any evidence? Could the glue actually cause permanent damage? That last thought almost made me feel guilty. Almost. Finally, a different doctor came out, an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. "Mrs. Pemberton? I'm Dr. Vance. Your husband is stable and resting." The separation was successful, though we had to call in specialists. Specialists? I repeated weakly. He nodded gravely. The adhesive was extremely strong. We had to use medical-grade solvents and consult with a colleague who used to work in hazardous materials. The young woman who was with him has been discharged already, but your husband will need to stay overnight for observation. Can I see him? Dr. Vance hesitated. There's a police officer who'd like to speak with you first. Just routine questions about possible tampering in your home. The officer was a young woman named Deputy Kressler. She had kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor. We sat in a private consultation room and she pulled out a notepad. "Mrs. Pemberton, I need to ask you some questions about what happened today. Were you home this afternoon?" "No," I said truthfully. "I was visiting a friend in Millbrook. Jolene Hendricks. I can give you her number. I was there from noon until the hospital called." She wrote this down. "And you had no knowledge that your husband would be at your home with another woman today?" Here was my moment. I let tears well up in my eyes, not hard, considering everything, and my voice cracked. "Officer, I found out 2 weeks ago that Cornelius was having an affair. I caught them together in our bedroom. He's been staying with his brother while we figured things out. He asked to come by today to talk about reconciliation. I didn't want to be there, so I went to visit Jolene." Deputy Kressler's expression softened slightly. "I see. And you have no idea how industrial adhesive could have ended up in a personal lubricant tube?" "No," I said, meeting her eyes directly. "I can't imagine. Unless," I paused, as if struck by a thought. "You don't think his mistress did this, do you? Maybe she was angry that he was trying to work things out with me?" The deputy wrote something else down. We're exploring all possibilities. Does the name Desiree Lattimore mean anything to you? That's her, I said quietly. The woman he was with. After a few more questions, Deputy Kressler thanked me and said I could see Cornelius now. My palms were sweating as I walked down the hallway to his room. I'd done it. I'd actually pulled it off. But now came the hardest part, facing him. He was lying in the hospital bed, looking older and more pathetic than I'd ever seen him. His face was pale, and there were still medical monitors attached to him. When he saw me walk in, he actually had the audacity to look relieved. "Margie," he croaked. "Thank God you're here." I stood at the foot of his bed, arms crossed. "The doctor said you'll be fine. That you'll make a full recovery. Did they tell you what happened?" His voice was barely a whisper. "They told me enough." I let the words hang in the air between us. "You invited me to come talk about our marriage, and instead you brought her into our home again. Into our bed. Again. Margie, I'm sorry, the pain was..." He stopped, seeing the look on my face. "Did it hurt, Cornelius?" I asked softly, stepping closer to the bed. "Did it hurt when you realized what was happening? When you couldn't separate yourself from her?" Something in my tone made him pause. His eyes widened slightly. "Does Cornelius suspect Margot? And what will happen when Desiree starts asking questions?" Comment your theories, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't miss the next chapter. Things are about to get intense. I left the hospital that night with Cornelius's frightened eyes burned into my memory. He hadn't accused me outright, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. The coincidence was too perfect. His wife catches him cheating, he ends up in the emergency room in the most humiliating situation possible. Even Cornelius wasn't that stupid. The next morning, Deputy Kressler called me again. My heart jumped into my throat, but I kept my voice steady as I answered. "Mrs. Pemberton, I need you to come down to the station to answer a few more questions." "Of course," I said, channeling confused innocence. "Has something else happened?" "We'll discuss it when you get here." I dressed carefully for this meeting, conservative, grandmother ly. A lavender cardigan, sensible shoes. I looked like someone who baked cookies for church bake sales, not someone who'd orchestrated an act of revenge that landed 2 people in the emergency room. At the station, Deputy Kressler led me to an interview room. This felt more serious than our hospital conversation. Another officer joined us, Detective Branford, older and more intimidating. "Mrs. Pemberton," Branford began, "we've been investigating the incident at your home. We've discovered some interesting facts." My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. "Such as?" "The tube of lubricant that contained the adhesive was purchased 3 months ago. We checked the batch numbers. That means the adhesive was added recently, likely within the past few weeks." He leaned forward. "You discovered your husband's affair 2 weeks ago, correct?" "Yes," I admitted. "But I don't understand what you're suggesting." "We're not suggesting anything yet," Deputy Kressler said more gently. "But we need to know, did you have access to that tube? Did you have any opportunity to tamper with it?" This was the moment I'd prepared for. I took a breath and let it out slowly, like a woman gathering courage to admit something shameful. "Officers, I need to be honest with you about something." I paused, looking down at my hands. After I caught them together, I went through Cornelius's things. I was looking for evidence, trying to understand how long this had been going on. I did see that tube in his nightstand. It made me sick, knowing what it was for, knowing he'd been using it with her. "What did you do with it?" Branford pressed. Nothing, I said firmly, meeting his eyes. I was disgusted, but I didn't touch it. I just closed the drawer and left the room. I swear to you, I never tampered with anything in that house. Can anyone verify your whereabouts when the tube might have been tampered with? Kressler asked. I've been staying at the house every night. Cornelius was the one who left. He had his own key. He could have come back any time while I was out. I paused, letting that sink in. And so could she. That got their attention. You think Desiree Lattimore could have done this? Branford asked. I shrugged carefully. I don't want to accuse anyone without proof. But think about it, Cornelius was trying to reconcile with me. Maybe she didn't like that. Maybe she wanted to punish him, or scare him, or... I trailed off. I honestly don't know. But she had access to our house when I wasn't there. She knew where he kept things. The two officers exchanged glances. I could see them reconsidering their theory. After all, what motive did I have? I was the wronged wife trying to save my marriage. Desiree was the other woman who might have felt threatened or jealous. They asked a few more questions, took my statement again, and finally let me go with a warning not to leave town. As I walked out of that police station, my legs felt like rubber. I'd done it. I'd shifted their suspicion exactly where I wanted it. Margot's playing a dangerous game, but will her plan hold up under scrutiny? And what happens when Desiree becomes the prime suspect? Drop a comment, smash that subscribe button, and keep watching because the next chapter reveals everything. 3 days after my interview at the police station, I got a call I wasn't expecting. It was from Desiree. We need to talk, her voice said on the other end, cold and angry. I know what you did. My blood ran cold, but I kept my voice steady. I don't know what you're talking about. The hell you don't. The police have been questioning me for 2 days. They think I tampered with that tube. They think I tried to hurt Cornelius. But we both know it wasn't me, don't we, Margot? If you have something to say to me, say it to my face, I told her, surprising myself with my own boldness. Fine. Denny's on Route 40. Tomorrow at noon. Come alone. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there staring at my phone, my heart racing. This was either the stupidest idea or the bravest thing I'd ever done. Maybe both. The next day, I drove to Denny's with my phone in my pocket, recording app ready just in case. Desiree was already there, sitting in a booth at the back, looking nothing like the glamorous woman in those photos. Without makeup, she looked tired and older, with dark circles under her eyes. I slid into the booth across from her. You wanted to talk. Talk. Did you do it? She asked bluntly. Did you swap out that lubricant? I could have denied it. Played innocent. But sitting across from this woman who'd helped destroy my marriage, I felt something shift inside me. A reckless honesty. What if I did? I asked quietly. What if I made sure my cheating husband got exactly what he deserved? Her eyes widened. She'd been fishing, hoping I'd admit it, but she clearly hadn't expected me to be so direct. You could have killed him, she hissed. That adhesive, it was dangerous. The doctors said. The doctors said he'd be fine, I interrupted. I researched it carefully. Non-toxic, just extremely sticky. Painful and humiliating, yes. But not lethal. I'm not a murderer, Desiree. I'm just a woman who got tired of being treated like a doormat. I could go to the police with this, she threatened, but her voice lacked conviction. I leaned forward. And tell them what? That the wife you helped betray maybe, possibly switched out some lubricant, but you have absolutely no proof? Meanwhile, I have hours of text messages and photos proving you knowingly had an affair with a married man. How do you think that plays in a small town like Cedar Falls? She went pale. You're threatening me? I'm stating facts. I kept my voice calm. You came into my home, my marriage, my bed. You helped my husband of 52 years betray every vow he ever made. And yes, I made sure he paid for that. But here's what you need to understand, Desiree, this is over. The affair ends now. You stay away from Cornelius, you stay away from me, and you definitely stay away from the police with your little theories. Or what? She challenged, but I could hear the fear in her voice. Or I make sure everyone in this town and the next 3 counties knows exactly who you are and what you did. I'll send those messages to your employer, your friends, your family. I'll make sure you can't show your face anywhere without people knowing you as the woman who seduces senior citizens. It was harsh. Maybe cruel. But I was done being nice. Desiree stared at me for a long moment, then stood up abruptly. You're crazy, she said, but her voice shook. No, I corrected her. I'm just done being a victim. She left without another word, practically running out of the diner. I sat there for another few minutes, my hands trembling from adrenaline. I'd just confessed to tampering, but only to someone who had as much to lose as I did. It was a calculated risk, and I was pretty sure it had paid off. 2 days later, Deputy Kressler called again. Mrs. Pemberton, I wanted to update you on the investigation. My stomach dropped. Yes? We're closing the case. Miss Lattimore has declined to press charges, and your husband has stated he doesn't wish to pursue the matter further. Without a complaining party and with no clear evidence of who tampered with the product, there's nothing more we can do. Relief flooded through me. I understand. Thank you for letting me know. Mrs. Pemberton? Kressler's voice softened. For what it's worth, I've been doing this job for 12 years. I've seen a lot of cases like yours, good people pushed to their limits by betrayal. Whatever happened in that house, I hope you find peace. She didn't say she knew. But she didn't have to. I thanked her again and hung up. That evening, Cornelius called. I'd been avoiding his calls since the hospital, but this time I answered. Margie, he said quietly. Can I come home? Can we talk? Talk about what, Cornelius? About how you filed for divorce. About how you were with her again the day you were supposed to be reconciling with me. I'm dropping the divorce, he said quickly. I made a mistake. A terrible, horrible mistake. I want to make this right. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Make it right? Cornelius, you can't unmake what you did. You can't undo 52 years of taking me for granted. Please, he begged, and I heard tears in his voice. Don't give up on us. Not after everything we've been through. I closed my eyes, thinking about the young woman I'd been when I married him. The dreams I'd had, the life I'd imagined. None of it had included this moment. I'm not giving up on us, Cornelius, I said finally. You already did that when you brought her into our bed. The divorce papers are coming. I've already had my lawyer draw them up. You'll be served next week. Margie. Goodbye, Cornelius. I hung up before he could say anything else. Margot finally stood up for herself, but is this really the end? Comment what you think happens next, hit that subscribe button, and don't miss the final chapter where we reveal where everyone ended up. 6 months have passed since that awful Thursday, and I'm sitting on the porch of my new apartment, a cozy 2-bedroom in a retirement community 40 miles from Cedar Falls. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. Cordelia, my shark of a lawyer, made sure I got the house, half of Cornelius's pension, and most of our savings. He got his freedom and a scandal that will follow him for the rest of his life. The story spread through Cedar Falls like wildfire, of course. Small towns being what they are, everyone knows about Cornelius Pemberton and his mistress ending up glued together in the emergency room. The official story is that it was a freak accident, a manufacturing defect or something. But people aren't stupid. They see a cheating husband humiliated in the most biblical way possible, and they draw their own conclusions. I sold the house in Cedar Falls. Couldn't stand to be there anymore, surrounded by memories that had turned sour. Used the money to buy this place and set myself up comfortably. I've made new friends here, women my age who've been through their own trials and don't judge. We play cards on Tuesday nights, and I've joined a real book club on Thursdays. My children know everything now. Sutton was devastated but supportive. Palmer took longer to come around, he's closer to his father, but eventually he understood why I couldn't stay. My grandchildren still call me every Sunday, and that's what matters most. Cornelius tried to reconcile with Desiree after our divorce, from what I heard. She wanted nothing to do with him. The humiliation was too much, and she'd already moved to another state to escape the gossip. Last I heard, Cornelius was living alone in a rented room near Palmer's house, working part-time at a hardware store to make ends meet. His golden retirement years aren't quite so golden anymore. Do I feel guilty about what I did? Sometimes. Late at night, when I'm alone with my thoughts, I wonder if I went too far. But then I remember the messages, the lies, the 52 years I gave to a man who threw them away for someone younger. And I remember that I gave him a choice. He could have left me with dignity, could have been honest. Instead, he chose to betray me in the cruelest way possible. What I did wasn't right. I know that. It was dangerous and vindictive and probably illegal. But it was also the moment I stopped being a victim and started being a survivor. For 76 years, I'd been taught to be quiet, to be good, to put everyone else first. That one act of rebellion, however wrong, was me finally putting myself first. I've started writing my story. Not for publication or anything like that, but for me. For my grandchildren to read someday when they're old enough to understand that even grandmothers are human, that we make mistakes and feel pain and sometimes do things we're not proud of. The other day, I saw a young woman in the grocery store, probably 30, with a baby on her hip and exhaustion in her eyes. Her husband was walking ahead of her, on his phone, not helping, not noticing. I almost stopped her. Almost told her to pay attention, to watch for the signs, to never let herself become invisible. But I didn't. Because that's her journey to walk, not mine. All I can do is live my own life now, this second chapter one never expected to have. I'm 76 years old. I'm divorced. I'm living in a retirement community in a town where nobody knows my history. And you know what? I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy for the first time in years. Cornelius took 52 years of my life. But he doesn't get another single day. This time is mine. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I say sometimes it needs to be served with industrial strength adhesive and a side of poetic justice. Was it worth it? Every single humiliating second of it. Thank you for following Margot's journey from betrayal to empowerment. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Drop a comment below telling me what you'd do in Margot's situation, and remember, you're stronger than you think. See you in the next story.